Good evening, everybody. Oh, this really does pick up. Welcome to the Anacortes Planning Commission meeting of January 22nd. Ms. Geek, boy, I forgot your last name even.
Gleichman.
Ms. Gleichman, would you please take the roll?
Definitely. Commissioner Mills.
Present.
Commissioner McCombs. Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner Stoneman.
Here.
Commissioner Duretsky.
Here.
Commissioner Courier.
Here.
Yep.
I'd like to move that we excuse Commissioner McCombs, make his absence excused.
Okay. There's a motion to excuse Commissioner McCombs. He texted me today and said he was on a business trip and he wasn't available. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Stoneman, seconded by Mr. Mills. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we get moving, I would like to ask if it's all right with the commissioners to add one item to the agenda. I'd like Mr. Mills to be able to give a report about the Climate Committee and where we are with that. And I'm suggesting that we add it to the agenda just before the Planning Department update. Is that okay? Okay, so we'll make it 6A, I guess. Okay. Have you had a chance to read the minutes of 10/9 of 2024? Are there any changes or a motion?
Go ahead, Mike, I'll second.
Move to approve the minutes for the meeting of October 9th, 2024, as presented.
Second the motion?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, minutes pass. All right, now it's time for public comments. This is the opportunity for members of the public to speak before the Planning Commission on anything that's not on the agenda. We'll be happy to give you 3 minutes. Okay. Actually, it didn't count because you weren't at the microphone. Is there anybody online?
There's no hands raised, no.
Okay. All right, then we're going to move past public comment to public hearings, and we don't have a public hearing at this time. So now we're already on to item 6, which is election of officers. We have 2 officers to elect tonight, the chair and the vice chair. So we'll start with nominations for the chair.
I nominate Linda Martin.
Okay, there's been a nomination. Is there a second?
I second that nomination, Linda Martin.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Happy to entertain any other nominations. All right, it's been moved and seconded to nominate me as the chair for another year, but next year. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you very much. Now we need to elect a vice chair. Is there a motion to elect a vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Mills.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to nominate Mr. Mills as vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Mills. Yeah, that was interesting. Good politics there. All right.
Oh, that's what we should have done. We should have put, sorry.
We can tell
Could've gotten Will.
because he wasn't here. We elected him.
Will, your chair.
All right, there's some devious plans here to elect somebody who's not present. But we're already done with that, so 6A is done. 6B, 2025 Comprehensive Plan Update, proposed amendments to the goals and policies in the capital facilities and utilities elements. And we have Ms. Grage coming to the chair, or to the podium.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
I'm going to get this set up here. Let's see, from beginning, okay. Is that sharing correctly and everybody can see? I mean, I guess we don't have any online participants, so. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Libby Grage, Planning Manager in the Planning Community and Economic Development Department. And I'm here this evening to kick off the presentation and discussion about the capital facilities and utilities element updates to goals and policies as part of the 2025 Comp Plan Amendment, Comp Plan Update. And just the same slide I show every time, just to give everybody an idea of where we are in the overall process. We are here. So we've been at this for a little over a year now. We have still quite a bit of work to go. And this is our roadmap to comprehensive plan update success. We are right here, right now. We have discussed, or the Planning Commission has reviewed and discussed and held public hearings on the land use, housing, and transportation element goals and policy amendments. And now we are here at the capital facilities and utilities elements, which Mr. Andy Rayum, who is the Public Works Director, will be here, or is here this evening to go over. And then just a reminder about our process that we're using for the comp plan update review. We have the two-phase process, so we're using as phase one, we have our preliminary goal and policy revisions that we are rolling out for each of the elements of the comprehensive plan over the last couple months, and we'll keep doing that for the next several months. We still have a few elements to go, including economic development, parks and recreation, environment and conservation, and of course, we are working on the climate element as well behind the scenes. Well, not behind the scenes, and Mr. Mills will give us an update on what's going on with that here shortly. So putting these proposed changes to all of these elements, goals and policies out for public review, early on. We're collecting all of the feedback that we get from the commission, from written comments from members of the public, and at the public hearings, and we'll integrate all of that into as well as the climate policies, goals and policies, into a complete integrated draft document that we are anticipating being ready to go in hopefully June. We're hoping for June to have that out or released for public review. So anyways, I will stop right there and hand it over to Mr. Rayum.
Good evening, Planning Commission. I'm Andy Rayum. I'm the Public Works Director. Some people ask what is Public Works. So just real quick, it's the water system, the sewer system, the stormwater system, fleet, facilities. Probably forgetting one. Did I say stormwater? Yeah, no? Okay, stormwater. So basically all your utilities, the facilities, and the fleet are all my responsibility. So it's a big part of the capital facilities in the city. There's also some for fire. There's also some information about police in here, and as well as fiber, which is not part of the Public Works, but we're going to cover all those things in the capital facilities element. And then utilities, just to confuse things, utilities in the purview of the comprehensive plan, that does not include city utilities. It's like power, gas, telecoms, that type of stuff. So if you're confused, the utilities are actually in the capital facilities plan. The utilities that we don't own are not in the capital facilities plan. This is just a colorful illustration that you can have lots of stuff considered to capital facilities and the public services. We kind of culled this down to this list on the left-hand side here of all the different facilities and services we provide, and they're touched on in the capital facilities element. This one, this is the RCW, kind of showing what are the components that are required of a capital facilities element of your comprehensive plan. One to kind of point out to you that jumped out to me was the forecast of future needs for such capital facilities. So I think it might be the next slide. Okay, good. We do have 4 different other plans underway. There's kind of a 5th plan, and that's really a facilities assessment to figure out, like, do we need windows, roofs, air conditioning units and stuff on the actual buildings. But we do have 4 other plans that are in process. There's the water system plan, the general sewer plan, the stormwater master plan, as well as the transportation master plan. And so in those, we'll have a lot more detail that's not necessarily required of the comprehensive plan, but it's necessary for us to really figure out what do you need to support the growth in the future, kind of what are the issues with your system now is another piece that's not driven by the Growth Management Act, but as a city, we need to know, like, we need to take care of what we have, essentially, and if we need to build something to support future growth, that's a whole separate kind of pile of things that we need to look at. So so the changes to the policies, they're pretty minor. We did add, we'll get into that here in a second, but we tried to clarify some of the language. Some of it was a little bit outdated. We moved a couple around. There's a couple that made more sense kind of in the financial section versus a different section. But we'll get into a few examples here in a second. We did add a couple new policies and the revision to the existing policies. That's the big one will be the level of service. The level of service, which we'll get to here in a future slide, but that just kind of, as a community, we decide what level of service we want to live with as a community for each of the services we provide. So we'll have those here up on the screen in a second. I believe they were in your packet too. You already received a packet. Okay. So the first one there is just kind of a, just changing the language a little bit to try to be more clear. That's the CF 1.4. Same with the other couple examples there. Those are just all real clarifying language. Here's a couple that we deleted. We just relocated them to the financial section. This one is a new policy. So this is kind of what I was getting into about having separate plans that are kind of adopted by reference, if you will, that'll have a lot more of the details of why we think it is what we need for the future of each of the different utilities and services we provide. which is common, by the way, for most cities. You have separate plans for each of the different, I call them utilities because that's just my world, but each group of stuff usually has its own plan that's far more than you'd ever want in your comprehensive plan. This one is kind of an interesting one. Commerce recommends it. This is kind of it's hard. So you look at all the different groups of stuff, like your water versus your storm versus your streets, and you try to figure out what are you going to pay for first, because it's all financially constrained. And that gets really difficult when you talk about, police services versus streets or that type of thing. But there is a way. I've seen it happen before. It's not easy, but we are putting that goal in here that we will try to do that so that there's some prioritization, so you don't have just 6 different things marching forward without some understanding of the financial outlay. It's kind of the same type of clarification we added. So this is kind of the meat of the changes. We really wanted to take the comprehensive plan element and try to make it have a little bit more kind of specifics or tangible targets that are things that we can measure. And for water, sewer, and storm, those are just the examples where we kind of said, well, just go look at this other document. We try to put the really high level. These are things that we're targeting as a community for levels of service. And there's transportation, so police, and this is where they put their targets in. Just increasing a little bit of the officer per population. Looks like we're trying to be faster to response times. Sorry, I'm just reading this the first time because I didn't draft these. So that was it for the capital facilities element. This is the utilities element. So again, this is electrical, telecoms, huge sound energy, natural gas. It's a really small section. It's hard to get the external companies to really kind of comment on your comprehensive plan, but we have seen more interest than ever before because of the greenhouse or the climate change element, that they want to look at our utilities element as different companies to see kind of what is it saying that their goals are for our community. We've yet to see them provide comments, so we'll see what we get. It's just word clarification. This one is for kind of the solid waste side. So this was I think it was passed by ordinance of the city council to add this to the docket for solid waste as a utility. We hire waste management to do our recycling and our yard waste. We do the garbage in-house. Oh, there you go. There's the other one I do, is solid waste. But these are some of the goals that the council would like to see in here. So they inserted them. Am I not talking into the mic? I'm sorry. Did you guys hear me that whole time? Okay. All right. Sorry about that. And this is just to recognize the Anacortes fiber optic network. There was some language in there before, like, think about it, and now we're trying to create it and provide high-speed internet to the community. And the next steps are to review and get your feedback on the proposed changes by staff. With staff did do all this in-house, just so you're aware of these changes that you're looking at tonight. The public hearing is advertised, and the hearing is February 12th or February 26th. I guess we haven't scheduled it yet. The 26th, there we go. And that's the end of our presentation. Chair.
Thanks. So the question I have a process question. So we have all of the details. Do we want comments, questions now on those details, or wait till another meeting? What would you like?
We're ready to go now if you are.
I think we are. Okay, so all right, I'm pulling up in my packet, let's see what page it is. Page 17 of 50 is where the capital facilities, goals and policies. You're with us? Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go page by page like we've done in the past, and if anybody has a question on that page, we'll just stop and ask the question or comment. And these are numbered, I guess, starting at page 2. Any questions on page 2 or 3?
Question of clarification on page 2.
Okay, page 2.
Under CF 1.2, we changed the wording of 6 years of construction to a specified time thereafter. I assume the 6 years that existed before was to tie it to the capital budget planning process. Why are we changing that to something other than that?
So it's common to plan further than that. So your comprehensive plan goes till 2045.
Okay.
So this is, we're trying to look at that far along. I mean, we're not going to be 100% right, but we do want to try to envision that far out. So financially, we're thinking things through, that we really think of the whole system. We need that much time, basically,
Agreed.
to try to get at everything.
And then just a comment on CF 1.3, 1.3. I know Mr. Mills has asked a few times for a glossary, and I'm not sure if people are keeping track of glossary, but I think system plans would be a good item for a glossary, because there's, I think there would be questions about what are system plans. Okay, page 3, anything, questions or comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Mills?
On page 3 and elsewhere further on, we refer to facilities or assets owned by the city. Do we have any significant leased assets that should be referenced in addition?
That's a really good question. I'm guessing we do not. It wouldn't be the first time, though. Most cities do have leased properties, but I can't think of any that we don't own since I've been here, which isn't terribly long, but I would probably know. We'll get back to you, though, because I do want to double check that.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Okay, page 4. I have a suggestion on page 4. Policy CF 1.10 says conduct vulnerability assessments and prepare disaster preparedness plans for critical infrastructure. I'm just thinking that it fits better at CF 3, which is, we can find it. Help me out,
Chair Martin,
somebody.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but which one did you propose to move?
Policy CF 1.10.
Oh, it's at the top. Okay, got it.
Thank you. Oh, that's right. So CF 3 speaks about correcting deficiencies. Seems like that fits better with conducting a vulnerability assessment. So, just an idea. Anything else on that page? All right, page 5. Questions, comments? I have a question about your stormwater goal there. And just a question, the last sentence on the new part of the stormwater says the stormwater utility is well, I'm sure it's a typo, but is strive to achieve the future condition of the system as detailed in the stormwater master plan. So when it says that they're going to strive to achieve a future condition, I'm wondering if we should include that, because that's an aspirational goal. I'm not so sure we want, and we're going to strive for all of them. So I don't know. That one doesn't, that last sentence seems like maybe not, shouldn't be there, or should be changed somehow. Anything else on that page? And I see that we don't have parks in there, but I'm sure that'll come at some point. Yeah. Okay.
I guess, Chairman, on the, your other comments, so all of those have that where they're striving to achieve the future and, like the general sewer plan and then the general stormwater plan and then whatever. So, I mean, I think maybe you're asking for something fundamental
Good point.
changed about the way those are written. I don't know if that's something that either makes sense or not.
Yeah, I
I
see
argued
that.
with these guys about using aspirational terms, and
Yeah,
they cautioned me that in the comprehensive plan is the place to be aspirational. So I'm with you guys. I'm used to it being like almost regulatory, like now you're going to do this or you didn't do it kind of type of thing. But there are some things in these master plans that are, we would love to have, like, for example, I think for the stormwater master plan, one thing that comes to mind is like, we'd like the streams to be healthy in the city. And that's, sometimes we can make that happen. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes they'll take longer than the length of this comprehensive plan. Sometimes they'll take less time. So that's why they went with they've encouraged me to be aspirational.
except that the policy says to establish the following levels of service. So, I don't know. Just a comment.
Yeah.
And Mr. Stillman's point is well taken. It's in several of them. All right, anything else on page 5? Okay. I don't think your mic's on.
By design. Question about fire. Currently, a variety of different types of fire are listed with a response time of 7 minutes. But the new policy cuts that time, but it eliminates all but house fires or structure fires. Does that mean there won't be for vessels or grass fires or other kinds of fires, there won't be a time restraint, or I guess,
Oh,
am I reading that incorrectly?
I know that the fire department, hi, it's John Coleman, planning director. I know the fire department wanted to improve their response times, and they're also interested in having a focus beyond just single-family houses. So, what exactly is your concern?
It's just a question. Currently, a variety of different kinds of fires are listed with them responding within 7 minutes with a truck and three firefighters, which I think is what the legal requirement to go into a building anyway. Correct?
yes.
But the revised only eliminates all but the structure fires. But is there no time requirement to respond to other types of fires?
Mr. Dretsky, I might have a partial answer to this because I have a son who is a firefighter and a paramedic, and so I just ran these times by him and the way that they were written. He was impressed with all of them. And the one that says effective response force of second alarm to structure fires, that one, he explained to me, meant when it says the second alarm to any structure fires, he said that means they're talking about commercial buildings.
Okay.
That's a code, I guess, for commercial buildings.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
We can have Chief Harris address this either by email or attend at the next, when we present this next, if you would like.
And the other thing is, I imagine a time restraint on a vessel. I mean, it depends where the vessel is, you know, how far do they got to run hoses and get guys down a dock? I mean, if it's close to shore, great, but if it's extended way out there, you know, as fast as they can get there, I'm sure they're going to try, but putting a time restraint on it would be an interesting challenge.
Would you like Chief Harris to address the Planning Commission on this?
Yeah, I guess they've struck several different kinds of fires, and I guess my question is, are those going to be addressed in the final, or?
No, I think this is already intent, like, this is the final that the fire department has provided to us.
I guess I would like to hear an answer. Then.
Okay.
Is there
We'll
a time?
have 'em
Is there a hope for time?
We'll either have them email or try to get them here on
Sounds good. Thank
a
you.
Wednesday night.
Okay, so I think that was page 6. Anything else for page 6? I was interested in why the police took out any kind of time element from theirs when the fire put theirs with time elements. I don't know if you noticed that.
We could have them do a joint email to you and explain their changes. Yeah, we don't.
One took out and the other put in.
Yeah, we don't know if that's probably on purpose. Just kidding. Sorry. I will have them email you guys to
Okay.
clarify.
Page 7. This is where I thought that CF 1.10 should be in here, under section CF 3.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Mr.
On
Mills?
On page 7, I don't have a question, but I'd like to applaud the addition of implementing a funding prioritization process. And I recognize from your comments that perhaps was dictated by state law, but that's something we're going to struggle with throughout this plan is we can't do everything, so we have to prioritize. And so seeing that in writing, I think, is an excellent addition. Whether it's on our own or required by law, it's great.
Good point. All right, let's turn to page 8. Anything here? Just a comment on CF 4.5. The new wording says to explore funding approaches that don't put the full burden of capital facilities to support future growth on existing tax and ratepayers. Funding sources examples include connection fees, designated area surcharge fees, and impact fees. Just a comment. It sounds good in theory, but I think it will make building less affordable, which might be the opposite of what we're trying to do with getting more affordable housing, et cetera. But, you know, maybe there's a balance, and I don't have any problem with the wording or putting it in there, actually, because it sounds great. Just might not have the effect that we're looking for. Anything else on page 8? Okay, page 9. Commissioners, would you look at the top of that page? When system deficiencies are identified in a system plan, those deficiencies shall be addressed as a part of the improvements required of development, redevelopment, when the deficiency is inside or adjacent to the project. So I have questions about really even adjacent to the project?
Yeah, so typically the frontage would be that, the adjacent would be the right-of-way. So that's usually where the utilities are. Occasionally you'll have one go through the property, with an easement. So we wanted to address that with saying if it was in it or adjacent to. So adjacent is in your half of the road that is abutting your property that you're doing the project on. We typically would have them do the sidewalks, curb and gutter, as well as half the street. But there might be pipes underneath there that are they're not to capacity, they're worn out, that type of thing. We ask them to fix those as part of their frontage improvements.
Okay.
It is applicable in the verbiage under frontage as well. Well, we'll go over to that.
Okay. Thank you very much for the explanation. Anything else on page 9?
Madam Chair, given the
Mr.
explanation, it sounds like in almost all, if not all cases, the adjacency that's being referred to is the right-of-way. Perhaps we could add that clarification into the wording so that other readers won't have the same problem you did.
That might be a suggestion.
That's a good idea.
I could just add, or adjacent to the project in the right-of-way, because we're not going to make them do stuff on their neighbor's property. It would only literally be in the right-of-way.
Yeah. That would help.
Okay.
That would help people like
Inside.
me.
Inside, comma, adjacent, or right away to the project.
Mr. Ryan, say that again to the microphone.
Right here at the end where is inside or adjacent to the project. Instead, revise it where it's inside, comma, adjacent, or right away to the project, or in the right of way of the project.
I think that still leaves an issue. Mr. Ram, how did you word it?
With that change or with the way
What did you say?
I just said to add to the end of it, or adjacent to the project in the right-of-way.
Yeah,
Because there's in no case we would make a project go do something in another private property next door to them.
yeah,
I mean, that'd be pretty
which is
wild.
what I thought. Why would we be asking the next door neighbor?
That's why I want to make sure adjacent is not the neighboring private property. It would be neighboring public property.
Yeah, does that sound okay, Mr. Ryan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. We're almost through here. That's the end of 9. How about 10? On 10, it seemed like there were several that maybe we should just leave for right now that might need to go into the climate element. Look like CF 7-8. I would just leave it the way it is till we see what the climate element is. And CF 7-9 also might maybe be moved to the climate element.
Even CF 19.
Mine says 7-9.
Oh, mine might be outdated here. It looks like a 1 on mine. So the one that we're talking about is participate in processes for determining the location of capital facilities of regional or statewide importance.
No, those are fine. Just above that,
Oh,
policy CF 7-8 and policy CF 7-9.
there they are.
Those look to me like they might fit in the climate element. And so CF 7-8 just adds the word sea level rise, and I would say we should just leave it alone for now until we find out what the climate committee or what the climate element is going to look like. Okay, anything else? Page 11. Not only one change on there. Okay, made it through utility, or made it through capital facilities, onto utilities. And, yeah. Is there anything in, actually, the whole plan? There's a few that, at the end of the utilities, that might end up in the climate element as well. Just, maybe for future, we'll see whether it does or not. But policy U 6.2, U 6.3, and U 6.4. You've got I think there's a climate to be determined. Those might be easily just shifted to the climate section. No changes, just a different organization thought. Anything else?
Chair?
Yes.
Regarding your climate comments, when we bring it back, I think the intent was to also take some of the climate stuff and move it into some of these elements and not take all of the climate and all of the climate related things and move it to the climate element. There is intent to address climate throughout the comp plan elements,
Right.
not exclusively in the climate element. So
Right.
if you'd prefer that we take it all out and move it there, move it to the, like, for example, taking these goals that you were talking of, what was that, U7? U6?
Well, in each of these, in both the capital facilities and in the utilities, at the very end of each of them, it says new subheading, climate-focused goals and policies. Right there in green at the bottom of the page.
Right. So when you mean by move it to the climate part, you mean move it down to this new subheading?
That's what I think.
Oh, that sounds very reasonable. Okay. I thought you were saying move it to the other, move it out of this element to the climate element.
No,
Oh yeah. Okay. We understand now. Thank you.
okay. I thought that was why there was that new subheading. Okay. Is there anything else on these two elements? Thank you, Mr. Ram. Looks like no. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
And by the way, thank you for developing all those master plans in stormwater and wastewater and all of the other things. It's really nice, just as a member of the public, to hear that the city is putting together some actual plans, master plans in each of these areas. So thank you for doing that.
No problem. Yeah, I spent 15 years as a planner, and then I got here and I was like, you don't have plans for your utilities, so that's how that happened. And yeah, that's going to be helpful, I hope.
I think so too. All right. That's great.
Thank you, Mr. Ram. So I guess just to close that out, we will look at any clarifications or updates we need to make to these goals and policies and bring the additional information back to you next meeting. And we will also be publishing a notice of availability and public hearing for a public hearing on the 26th, I think it was, February 20th.
So you're saying there's no meeting on the 12th? Is that what you're saying?
No. We
not
can
saying
still,
that.
I'm not saying that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think that what we could plan to do is make some of those updates and clarifications that the commission recommended and also get the information from the fire chief and the police chief for you. And we could bring that back on the 12th,
Okay.
if that works for the Planning Commission. Okay,
I'm seeing head nods, yes?
excellent, thank you. And that's all I have on that topic.
Okay. So now we're moving on to 6C, 2025 Comprehensive Plan Update, Housing Action Plan Strategies, discussion continued. So this has been a long time coming, and we may or may not get through all of these tonight, but I just wanted to remind us where we were. The Housing Action Plan was developed by makers, I believe. The city adopted it, and was it the whole planning? I think it was the planning committee from the city council who made some recommendations to condense the HAP plan. We look at the HAP plan as a menu, and the planning committee from the city council said, let's narrow that down, and they handed it back to us. And our goal is to narrow even more. And so there's several questions that we need to ask ourselves as we're looking at this. And this is based on the goals and the vision for the Housing Action Plan. Here are the questions. Will the change that's being proposed increase the possibility of more affordable housing? Number 2, will the change increase the types of available housing? And number 3, will this change be accepted by our community? In other words, an incremental change, which is also what the council has indicated they would like to have. So again, our role is to find the items that will have the most return on investment is the best thing I can think of, that will actually work to either add more affordable housing or add to the types of housing or be accepted in our community. So having said that, we started a long time ago, and I think we heard from Mr. Dretsky and Mr. Stoneman, and I don't know if we got through your assigned items. For the sake of the public, there are so many elements in this housing action plan. In order to really read them and digest them, we divided ourselves into teams of 2 to look at them and make recommendations to the whole commission. And again, our job just is to narrow down and then send that back to the city council. Do you want to add anything, Ms. Grage or Mr. Coleman?
I'll just add, thank you for the opportunity. I'll just add that the document that you have in front of you has been updated to the one I have on my screen here, to include which commissioners were assigned to each of the different strategies.
Thank you for doing that.
You bet. And then also what the initial recommendations were at the last meeting where we discussed this.
Great. So, and when you wrote move forward with PCED recommendation, what exactly does move forward mean?
My intent with saying that was move forward with directing staff to develop language amendments to the development regulations so that the commission and the public could see what the actual changes would look like in the code.
Okay.
And then
So in other words, do what is in the recommendation from the planning department.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, so it looks like where we are is 2.1.9, single-room occupancy housing. And,
I think if I remember right, that was mine, and
Yes.
I actually went off the rails a little bit because I, I didn't have I wasn't aware we needed to follow that law, and so I think in the end, we actually came back to, really just got to follow the law, so the stuff I had looked up didn't apply, so I think we might be past that.
okay. So on 2.1.9, can we put today's date and move forward with PCED recommendation?
I
Yes, we
think so.
can put that. I'm not sure. So I wanted to update the commission that there is some new draft guidance out from the Department of Commerce on co-living housing, which is sort of the term that the Washington State Legislature used in some new state law adopted in 2024, which was after the Housing Action Plan was developed. And so I think that this new co-housing law is going to supersede the HAP recommendation for single-room occupancy housing. So staff needs a little bit more time to take a look at that guidance and probably bring back an updated recommendation for Planning Commission.
Okay, fair enough. So 2.1.9, we haven't quite put to bed yet. And by the way, I don't blame anybody if you can't remember where you were, because it's been months and months. So
October.
perfectly
October.
fine to say we need to come back to that one. I might be saying that too. Okay,
I have a question for Lindsay there.
Mr. Ryan.
Yeah, on 2.1.9, is that also co-housing, but, well, does that include rooming houses? Is that still going to maintain? Because I know that they wanted to call it something else, but then that causes issues with other ordinances or...
Yeah, that was one of I was just looking at the guidance before the meeting, and there is actually some guidance on, if you have, what the state law says is co-living facilities have to be required in urban growth areas where at least 6 multifamily units would be allowed. But the guidance said that if you have regulations that allow a similar type use, which a rooming house or a boarding house would be, in zones where you couldn't do at least 6 units, that you keep those regulations and use the different terminology, so have a different category. So yes, from what I know right now, I believe that we would keep a separate term in our residential zones. So the R zones would still allow for rooming houses. It gets up to 9 sleeping units. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
thank you.
Okay, so 2.1.10, that looks like that's also Mr. Dresky and Mr. Stoneman, or one.
Can you call that back up, Libby?
Supportive housing,
Yeah, I didn't bring my notes this time, sorry.
that's okay.
So we'll see if I can pull it back up. I thought I was done.
Well,
We might be able to, we can probably hash it out if we can get up. Can you scroll down just a little bit, John? Or Libby, or Sherry? I don't remember this one specifically then. It does look like we're just, again, going to go towards following state law, so it might not require more than that.
you want us to come back to that? To have a
Yeah,
chance
if you
to-
want me to go back and look at it again, I can do that also, absolutely.
I might have it here. Two point one.
But again, I think it looks like I might not have had any notes anyway, maybe that's why I don't remember it, because it looks like it says just make updates to comply with state law, so there's probably not a whole lot of discussion that has to be had. We probably have to follow the state law.
Well, yeah, we have to follow the state law, but let's come back to that, because it
Okay.
looks like there's a few changes here. So 9, we're going to
Okay.
come back to. 10, we're going to come back to. And then we're on to 2.3, and this one we didn't assign anybody. And,
2.3.
yep, 2.3, it's about ADU regulations, and the planning department we're going to come back to this one as well. This one is recommendations still being developed.
So as far as ADU recommendations, the maintenance.
She says Mike.
Oh, sorry. Right. That is, I believe it's the maintenance property codes covers a lot of the regulations for the ADUs regarding size, minimum size bedrooms, occupancy based on living room size, and that's the IPMC, I believe. So going off of that, and that's also sisters or sits side with a lot of the larger cities' rental registration ordinances for ADUs and rental properties that would potentially govern that. So I would recommend we visit those.
Okay, so we're coming back to 2.3. The city is going to come back with some suggestions, and Mr. Ryan has got some suggestions of where to look. Okay? All right, we're on to 2.4. Uh-oh, Mr. Mills, it's you and me. 2.4.1, minimum lot sizes.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Mills.
I pride myself on being prepared for these meetings, but by the time I realized that this was on the agenda tonight, I could not find my file with the notes from several months ago when we last looked at this. I do have a couple of comments that can be offered, but my specific notes are not available to me tonight.
So, totally understandable. It's so nice that we're human beings here, isn't it?
Just so much time lapse.
Yes, it's so much time lapse. Here's a couple of thoughts from me, and we'll come back to it because you don't have your notes either. My little 3 questions as I look at this, the housing action plan has some changes in it. Did you make that new? Somehow it's got suggested changes in it? Like
No, when the housing action plan was put together, there were they actually said, here's what those changes should look like in the
Okay.
code. On some of the items, most of
Okay.
the items, as a matter of fact.
So there's a chart in the housing action plan that shows how in each zone they would reduce the size of the lot. For example, in R2A, they would reduce the size of the lot from 9,000 square feet to 7,500 square feet, and so forth. When you get to the R4 zone, they're suggesting reducing the size from 4,200 square feet to 3,000 square feet. So my thinking on that one is, will it provide more affordable housing because you're on a smaller lot? The answer is probably yes to that question. Will it increase the types of houses available? I don't think so. So that is a no. Will it be accepted by the community? My sense right now is no. So that would be one that I would say we might be able to cross off. But we'll come back to it, so just a thought. Now I've lost my place. All right. What's the next one?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Mills.
in spite of not having my notes in front of me, based upon my 2-month-old memories, a couple of overall observations. As I recall reading in the HAP, places related to this section which referred to making changes on minimum lot sizes to all residential designations, whereas what I'm seeing here is it leaves out R1 and Old Town. So the minimum, we need to fix that
Yeah, and we were gonna combine those, weren't we?
documentation so that it is clear whether or not it's all residential, or for some reason we're excluding R1 and Old Town. Also,
That's true.
as I recall, we had a discussion on 2.4.2 as to why that one was relating only to R4 and R4A rather than working its way down the matrix as well. And then lastly, I remember being concerned about also in 2.4.4, the idea of applying that section only to new lots, and how in implementation that would be handled logistically, or does there need to be some sort of grandfathering? So it's kind of a rhetorical observation on my part.
You're talking about, so on 2.4.1,
Yeah.
the question is, why in the HAP plan do they not include R1? Actually, they don't include R1 or R2 in reducing the size, it looks like.
Yeah, to give a specific reference, I'd have to find my file folder, which I will tomorrow. But in the discussion of minimum lot sizes in the HAP plan, there's also language that refers to all residential zones. But the part that we've lifted and have here leaves out R1 and Old Town. So either we need to change the language elsewhere in the HAP plan, or we need to expand this to actually include all residential zones. That was my comment, or my recollection on 2.4.1.
So with 2.4.1, you'd like to add Old Town, is
think-
what we're understanding.
I think we're saying on 2.4.1, we're going to come back,
Yeah,
but he's making comments that was a question, and I remember that we did wonder.
And duplexes and multifamily is not allowed in the R1 zone, so that's why there's,
would be that.
under 2.4.1 on this table, you don't see anything about R1.
yeah, that was my observation, is that there's language elsewhere in the HAP plan that refers to adjusting minimum lot sizes across all residential zones. And that seems inconsistent with what's being proposed here, because R1 is a residential zone. Old Town is a residential zone. So just potentially all it needs is a language cleanup, whether it's the language here to include R1 elsewhere is excluded, but Old Town, or to change the language elsewhere, that, and I've got it circled in my folder, I'll find it for you. So that's at the minimum an inconsistency in the language, and in general, wondering why we wouldn't have minimum lot sizes in R1 in Old Town. 2.4.1, I don't think is I see your point, John, for duplexes and ADUs, okay? Better wait for my notes.
Okay, we're coming back to 2.4.1. 2.4.2, recommendation from the planning department is to make changes per the HAP recommendations. And the HAP recommendations are about minimum lot coverage.
Maximum. 2.4.2?
Maximum, thank you very much, maximum lot coverage. And the recommendation is to go, is it going from 50% to 60%? Is that the one?
For lot units density of 6 to 55%. This was the slide that we had that day.
Ah, Mr. Ryan gets the gold star today. He's got the actual slide.
So that was for
2.4.2, this is the PowerPoint, says it's for the R4 and R4A zones. Current code R4 and R4A zones have a lot coverage of 50%. Also have those same two zones also have a minimum landscape area standard of 20%. HAP describes current maximum lot coverage being on the lower side for a high-density zone, which particularly impacts smaller sites. Proposed update is increase the maximum lot coverage for R4 and R4A zones to 60%. What do you think, commissioners? Probably sounds fine.
It's looking like 55% is the number for these guys.
Yeah. Thanks for finding that. That's great.
I'm up next, so I got my.
Oh, yeah. Okay, he's up next. Okay. So on 2.4.2, we're going to say yes, make the changes as per the HAP recommendations. Okay, and density is 2.4.4. This is for multifamily development, buildings with 4 or more units in the R4 zone. A minimum density of 15 units per gross acre should be considered for several reasons, and they give some reasons. Do you recall that one, Mr. Mills?
Yeah, so the note that I made to myself this afternoon on this was I recalled struggling with the last bullet under the recommendations, which is trying to struggle with whether or not you grandfather and apply this to only new lots. I guess almost by definition, unless you're redeveloping a lot, it would have to be only new lots. Or thinking about the other way around, if this was applying to existing lots, would that incent someone to redevelop a property that may be fine already in order to utilize the new standards?
So I'm looking at the PowerPoint that Mr. Ryan has pulled up. current code zones R3 and R3A have already been updated to focus on minimum lot size instead of typical DU per acre measurement. Proposed update, remove the use of maximum density standards from the remaining residential zones and rely on minimum lot sizes, standards, and permitted areas. I think this is one we need to come back to as well. Yeah. Yeah.
It needs a little attention.
Yeah, okay. So that's 3. 2.4.5, setbacks. Reduce the minimum street and interior side setbacks for the upper floors in certain zones. I can find it. Do you recall, Mr. Mills?
Do not.
Do you want me to give them the slides? Have them pull it up on the big screen?
Well, we've got it pulled up right here.
Okay, cool. Never mind.
Reduce the street setback from 20 feet to 15 feet. Okay, so let's just use our little criteria. Would that provide more affordable housing? I don't think so. No.
Well, yeah.
I think the thought on that one, in terms of the recommendation, was that the 5 feet and then 7.5 feet on the upper stories creates difficulty in designing a structure to meet those setbacks. So typically, and expense, and so typically somebody would just do the 7.5 on both sides, reduces the likelihood of building additional units in that case, because let me just read this, because we're only talking about the R3, R3A, R4, and R4A zones, removing this upper floor setback requirement, or reducing it, back to 5 feet. These are smaller lots in higher density zones, so it would essentially, the intent is to give more flexibility for building design.
Okay. Mr. Mills, what are your thoughts?
In those zones, I'm not terribly troubled by it.
Okay. I agree. And we see thumbs up even. All right, so
Well, I think that's part of their strategy as well.
I'm speaking here.
No, I just was going back over those original slides, and they're recommending that, yes, 15 feet complements our recommended adjustments.
Okay. So on 2.4.5, we're going to agree, make changes as per HAP recommendations.
And in case you have any concerns, so what it says in the HAP is that garages still have a 20-foot setback. So in order to make sure that there's enough room to park a car in front of a garage on the property. So garages are still set back, so you're not going to have cars hanging out into the sidewalk or street. But the rest of the house can come forward, which is actually a common requirement of design standards for some homes, is to have the garage pushed back instead of the garage pushed forward. So there's some additional potential benefits depending on your aesthetic tastes.
Okay. 2.4.6, height bonus program, adjust small unit bonus height provisions, increase the maximum unit size from 600 square feet to 650 square feet. Now, I do remember this conversation, Mr. Mills. Go right ahead.
Oh, you said you,
I do. Do you, what do you recall?
I don't.
Oh,
Well, actually, I correct myself. I remember that the thought process on the increase had to do with providing storage.
yep.
And to me, storage is unconditioned space. And if we're talking about conditioned space, I don't see that argument supporting the increase.
Right. So when we discussed it, we said this would be one, as we're trying to narrow the scope, this would be one that we would say no to, that we could narrow the scope on the housing action plan.
So I think, just to clarify for everybody listening, there's the HAP recommendation to go to 650 square feet. This is entirely separate and not related to a private developer who did use the small unit bonus and built them at 600 square feet, which is the current requirement. And he has testified and requested that it be moved to 650 square feet because it enables just a little bit more space, like typically adding a little bit more closet space in the unit. Inside the unit, so that would allow people to, not have to, he was having trouble with people not just, giving comments saying, and I apologize for paraphrasing for somebody else, but he was saying that people were commenting that, they just needed a little bit more space for storage, and that's why they would leave these smaller units. So we actually, between his comment and the HAP recommending it, it's coming from two entirely different places.
Do you want to change your recommendation, Mr. Mills?
I'm more amenable to conditioned space, which was in interior. My recollection was that it had been unconditioned space in the parking areas that was the argument from the developers, as I recall, but under the proviso that it's conditioned space interior to the unit, I could go with that.
2.4.5. I thought it was,
I'd support that.
I thought it was for more storage as well.
One is Mr. Coleman stated, more space inside.
Yeah,
I think the intent is meaning more storage space inside the unit. So the 650 square foot requirement applies to the living space, to the unit. We don't calculate in, like, say they had storage lockers down on a different floor. That's not part of this calculation. That might be unconditioned space, a storage unit on a different floor. That wouldn't be part of the calculation of the space in the unit itself.
all right. So would it allow for more affordable housing? No, I don't think it would. Yeah, it would cost more.
It might, so I apologize, it might, just, again, paraphrasing from the developer that built the 600 square feet, he would be more inclined to build it if he was allowed 650 as opposed to 600. So it's debatable whether or not it creates more affordable units, but someone has at least said that they would be more inclined to do so if it was 650 versus 600. I don't know how the Planning Commission wants to take that information, but it is information.
I would like for you to add to that.
Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, well, my experience, I don't think the price difference would be sufficient enough to where we're going, hey, it's affordable. The energy codes have already shot affordability out, just not as a practical application, but if you're building it 50 square feet, really time and material, you're already building the structure. I don't think it would elevate the cost out of that affordable, but whatever that price range that they were having, $500, $1,000, I don't know.
So would adding 50 square foot to an apartment make for more affordable housing? The argument that Mr. Coleman is making is that it would make it more saleable and therefore maybe more amenable to a builder. But would it allow for more affordable housing? I guess I would still say I don't think so.
Possibly, though, people who want smaller housing would find that little extra space enough to make them want to go there, which means they would be providing affordable, more economical rents.
Would it increase the type of available housing? Because that's another goal of the HAP. I don't think so. Wouldn't change the type. Would it be accepted by the community?
Fairly hedonistic community.
If you built them and didn't ask for the bonus height, no problem. But if you're going to provide them because you want to take advantage of the bonus footage program, yes, there's going to be people who complain about it.
Yeah.
They're not worried about more affordable housing. They're worried about perception they're losing views.
Right.
I mean, we please some people and
Can't make 'em all
don't please
happy.
others.
I would still say that would be one that I would cross off the list. I think I would cross that one off still, I think. But I could be persuaded. But the next one, we'll skip to the next one, which is the elevator penthouse.
Dr. Martin, if I can interject just
Yeah,
a
sure.
thought. Most people would tell you the market will decide whether it really works. And the fact that only one of those buildings has been built in Anacortes tells me that the developers have decided that people may want it, but it doesn't work. The extra cost to put in an elevator the extra cost doesn't justify adding that extra, those smaller units. We had one built, and we had a moratorium for a while, and now it's open and available again, and I don't see any rush to build them. Matter of fact, I don't know if you guys have any conversations with people who want to talk about that.
Well, the one person that requested to increase it to 650 is interested in doing another building, but he's
Doing
trying to
another?
make it
Okay.
pencil.
Well, I would say that's the person most qualified to say whether it works. Thank you.
I think when it comes to 2.4.7, Mr. Mills and I, as we discussed it, we did not think that that would fly in this community. That was our thought.
Agreed, as well as the logic as technology and equipment becomes more and more miniaturized. I'm not sure that height bonus I put it the other way, I think that height requirement for elevators is going to continue to, no pun intended, go down rather than be elevated. Okay.
You continue that.
Must be getting late. Okay, so the committee of two recommends a no on 2.4.7. And do you want to come back to 2.4.6?
6, yes,
Come back?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, let me just summarize what I think we have in our little section, mostly comebacks. 2.4.1, come back. 2.4.2, yes, make the changes per the HAP recommendations. 2.4.4, come back. 2.4.5, yes, make the changes. 2.4.6, come back. 2.4.7, no. Got it? Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, I think,
yes.
And I won't interject my thoughts.
You can interject your thoughts.
Is there any thought to increasing that to a developer can go to a max of 650 and let them choose whether they think the market wants it and whether they want to pay the extra few bucks for those, you got 10 units, you're talking about 500 square feet at $150 a foot or $100 maybe for a little bit of storage space. They got to make the decision whether they won't feel justified in spending the extra money and whether the market really wants it.
Well, how is that different than having, they have to be at least, right now they have to be at least 600 square feet, not exactly 600 square feet. And I think some of the ones in the Fidelgo Flats are slightly under the 600 square feet. So how is that different
Well, I
than
guess-
just saying the
So they have to be 600 feet or they can be less? If they want to build a 450 square foot studio, that's not an option?
Yeah, to obtain the bonus height, which is from 40 to 50 feet.
Right.
A certain percentage of the units in the building have to be less than 600 feet or less.
Okay, they can be less, okay.
Yes.
Because the thought is if they are smaller, they are cheaper. That's the thought, is to make them more affordable, so.
I think they prefer the word less expensive.
Well, that is
More frugal.
one of the ideas is theoretically, a smaller unit, may cost less, but also, building more units theoretically, provides more supply and brings down cost overall throughout the city, potentially. So that's another thought.
I wonder how that worked out. Does anybody know what those
Whether rents
units?
have gone down because that building got built?
Yeah,
Oh, I can answer that question real easily. No.
okay.
But maybe if there was a whole bunch more buildings, the impact would be there. Right now, there aren't enough of those units that haven't made any impact.
One of the council members yesterday made the statement that I thought was true, that with our aging population in this town, there are probably many senior citizens who are living in single-family, good-sized homes who would be more than willing to move into a smaller place if they were available,
And had an elevator, don't forget.
possibly. Very true.
Because many of those apartments that are being built in town are two and three-story buildings.
Yep.
A lot of the buildings that are being built with 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms have a lot of steps. And a taller building, because it has an elevator, might be very attractive to those people.
Good point.
The diversity of types of housing units and increasing the options available for people, I think is, another item here, consideration.
that was this.
Mr. Mills.
I just wanted to reinforce a couple of things that have just been offered. One is that, yes, as we age, we like to downsize. I've downsized twice, as an example, and I now live in a 3-story house, even though it's a downsized house. And it's the stairs that are going to cause me to downsize again. That's for sure. The other one, more broadly speaking, I wanted to reinforce or elaborate on. You've touched on it a couple of times that the market will determine what gets built. I think it's important that as a commission we remember that what we do and what the council does in the zoning and regulations and requirements will determine what doesn't get built, but the market will determine what gets built. I think it's an important thing to keep in mind. We can't force people to build.
Martin, can I get a clarification? Are we
Yes.
supposed to reduce all of these? I mean, or can we have more options available? I mean, that's what I'm trying to wrap my brain back around. I know they wanted to narrow it down, but I mean, if there's some, if we provide more options, I feel like that kind of accomplishes the goal as well.
I think you're right. I think that would be welcome.
Okay. There's not a high pressure to shrink this list down, because they've already shrunk it down before they got it to us, right?
They shrunk it down, but our assignment is to find out which of these are doable.
Yeah,
that-
viable, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that the planning department can actually write code for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, what time is it? We've got plenty of time. Okay, we're on to Mr. Ryan and Mr. McCombs.
Yeah, you got this, Buffy?
My-
His presentation will be short.
Right?
Do,
I'll let him take over right now.
go ahead, just a second. Ms. Grage, did you want to say something?
Oh, well, I was just going to suggest that maybe this would be a good place
To stop for now?
on this item for now, since Mr. McCombs isn't here. But
Yeah.
of course, it's up to the commission.
And we're not in a time crunch, but it would be helpful that we didn't wait 3 months in between, or 2 months in between, because we forget.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. I took all day revisiting this. I seriously did.
So you're ready to go?
I absolutely am.
And,
But I don't know what McCombs has.
okay. Well, since we worked in teams, I kind of think that we should just put a pause here as well. Even though I know you don't really want to bring it back again, but,
Well, we could bring it back at the next meeting on the 12th. That way it's somewhat fresh in people's
Yeah,
minds.
I'd appreciate that.
so commissioners, if we brought it back on the 12th, could we have the goal that on the 12th, we're going to get all the way through this and be done?
At least 2.5.
I think we can get through the whole thing. All right, so that would be great if we can do that. Which leaves us, I'm going to move on now to 6D.
Chairman Martin,
Yes,
there's a couple of places where recommendations are still being developed by staff. Would it be possible to have those prior to that February 12th? So,
perfect. Thank you for asking. All right, 6D, Planning Commission Rules of Procedure Discussion. And Mr. Coleman, Ms. Grage were kind enough to put this on the agenda because I asked, and here's why I asked. We've had half a year with our procedures. I think they're working pretty well, unless you want to make some changes to them. But there was one thing that was in the back of my mind, and that was we had somebody from the audience tell us that in our procedures, our authority, thank you, was missing something, we were told. We were missing RCW 35A. And so we were told that it's fine not to have it, and it still is fine not to have the 35A. But when our mayor gave his State of the City address, he also referenced RCW 35A, which made me think, well, should I look at it? And I did. And I made copies for you tonight of just the table of contents and the definitions. So take these and pass one that way. You can pass those that way. So, and I checked with Mr. Coleman and I checked with our attorney to see whether we should add this or not. And it is totally up to us. We do not need to add it. Everything is fine without it. But if you look at it, seems to me that it really does define some things that have to do with the commission. And so I'm just bringing it to you to say, what would you like to do? And we don't have to do anything tonight either. We can just think about it if you want to think about it or not, up to you.
I guess, so the RCW 3563 that's in there now, you're saying has been superseded by this?
I'm saying they both apply, they both apply to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
We're covered with that RCW 3563, with the authority under that. But there is this 35A63 that also covers things like the comprehensive plan and the actual Planning Commission, if you look at the definitions. So it's up to you, whatever you would like to do. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to save this for later, so this way we have time to go over it.
Okay? That be
Okay.
okay?
Point of clarification,
Yes.
would the intent be for 35A to replace 35.63?
No.
Or in addition?
In addition. So would you like to just have time to digest and think about it and come back? Should we put it on the agenda to decide or not? All it is should we add it or not as authority?
I'm okay with coming back, but if we want to get it done, I'd say if we're covered with what's in there now, I tend to not want to make changes just, just because.
Okay.
If the document works and it says what it needs to say now, then I don't know if I honestly would mess with it.
Okay. So I have one to come back, one that we don't need it.
I guess a question, do you feel like it would be a positive addition to this, and if so, why? And then I think then we can ponder it and come back to the next meeting and just look at it.
I think, yes, I think it would be a positive addition, and it may not make a whole lot of difference one way or another, but it sure wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt anything to add it. And it adds some things that 35 doesn't seem to have as much. So, and our mayor is quoting 35A as well as his authority. So it just caused me to think, and it certainly wouldn't replace anything, but would it be okay to add it would be the question. So let's just bring it back. Yeah. Okay. 6A. Oh, I said it was 6A and it really should be 6E. 6E is just a quick report from Mr. Mills on how it's going with the Climate Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You may recall back in October, I think it was, I updated you after the first meeting of the Climate Committee. Since that time, we've had two meetings, one on November 11th and one just last week on the 14th of January. In the November meeting, the team focused on our guiding principles, along with a wide range of how they would be applied, including to areas such as sensitive populations, adaptive capacities, and potential measures relative to land use, housing, building energy, the rest of the comp plan. Last week during our third meeting, we tweaked the guiding principles slightly to recognize the need to prioritize, a subject we talked about earlier tonight as well, prioritize in order to achieve the most benefit for the cost involved. And in our discussion, we defined cost to being more than just dollars and cents. Other costs to the environment, to other parts of the implementation of the plan, and not just a pure ROI, which, as a financial person, of course, kind of hurt me. We also reviewed measures for climate vulnerability and resiliency, and looked at how we could include those in the various aspects of the ecosystems, food and health, well-being, economic development, again, the whole list. That whole process through the meetings has really brought home to roost to me how difficult it is to take one component, whether it be transportation, housing, climate, in isolation, just like our discussion earlier this evening about, do we put things into the climate area, do we bring the climate things into the other areas? It's a series of simultaneous equations that makes me glad that I'm not on paid staff having to try to figure that all out. So the climate aspect really brought that home for me. To get more detail on this, I do notice on the website at the city, if you go to the Planning, Community, and Economic Development Department page, there's a tab for the on the left-hand side, there's a tab for the 2025 comp plan update, and close to the bottom of the page, there is a climate team hot link. And if you open that up, the first two meetings, you will find the presentation slides from the consultants, the meeting summaries, and the video, or it's a video, but the camera, we're sitting down here, so you really can't see who's talking. So really what you're getting is an audio. But lots of information there, particularly in the presentation materials. So I would recommend that. For the meeting that we just had last week, the presentation slides are there, but as of this afternoon, the meeting summary, nor the audio video is not there yet. Looking ahead, and unless I heard a February 12th date from Andy earlier this evening. Last week we were talking about a public focus meeting on February 13th, and maybe that's
going to be an invite for business owners and people that are in business, okay, to give more directed conversation with the consultants to make sure that they're being included in a way that's a little bit more more outreach than a public meeting.
Okay. The next meeting for the climate team is currently scheduled for February 27th. And our objective at that is to review the draft for our goals and policies to move forward. There will be a final open house and planning commission presentations in the March-April timeframe to be determined. Lastly is kind of a public service announcement on a related subject, and I should disclose that I also serve on the board of directors of the Anacortes Senior College, but there is a senior college course being offered called The Science of Climate Change, Past, Present, and Future. If you're interested in it, it's being taught by a retired physicist who has done a lot of research from his own interests outside his specific specialty, climate history and implications. If you're interested, go to seniorcollege.org or just Google Anacortes Senior College. There's 4 spots remaining in the class, but don't dawdle. There's a class at 4 o'clock tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mills. And now, item 7, Planning Department update. Mr. Coleman.
So I'd like to piggyback on what Commissioner Mills said. So not to add anything more than a shameless plug for www.planacortes.com or planacortes.org. Both of those domains take you to our 2025 Comprehensive Plan update page that Commissioner Mills referenced. And on that page is a whole lot of information about this update. All of the elements that we've already looked at, the goals and policies, all of the meeting materials for the Planning Commission meetings, those climate team meetings, and they're hopefully organized in a way that makes sense to people. We also have on there our climate tool, what is that referred to? Climate Explorer tool, which has more information than you know what to do with. It's an amazing wealth of information related to climate, and it has maps too. So if you just want to look at cool maps, they're part of that as well. And so thank you for giving the update of what the climate team's done. It's been, as the Planning Commission probably recognizes, it's been a little bit quiet on the comprehensive plan and the planning, long-range planning front during the holidays. And now we're getting back into it. And so don't have a lot of information to provide to you. I think at the last meeting I mentioned that the ordinance that you made a recommendation on about updates to address House Bill 5290, you made a recommendation on it, and there has been an appeal of the SEPA determination on it, so we're still in the process of getting that scheduled for the hearing examiner to hear the appeal before it can go to City Council. So it's still just hanging out, waiting to go to the next step. And otherwise, thanks for talking about what's coming up next with the climate team. And our next meeting is, so this is the second meeting in January, so it'll be the first meeting of February is the second Wednesday of the month.
So February 12th.
I believe you. Thank you.
Yes.
And that's all I have.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, commissioners, for hanging in there. And the meeting is now adjourned, 7:47.